When the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection was announced, I was so hyped that I immediately whipped up a script going over what I'd like to see in an MVC4. And I followed it right up with a video dedicated to building a roster for it. Both videos did pretty well, and I even ended the latter roster video with a hint at doing a full-on Capcom All-Stars roster next. Some time has passed since then, but my hype has been recently rejuvenated with the release of Capcom Fighting Collection 2. My hype isn't so much for the Vs. SNK games, oddly enough, but mostly for the Power Stone games and Plasma Blade and, oddly enough, Project Justice. I had never played it before, but oh my gosh, it's such a blast, I had no idea. Anyway. Capcom Fighting Evolution, or Fighting Jam, despite its deservedly sour reputation, was also included in this collection. And that's got a lot of fans, such as myself, thinking about the potential for a new, purely Capcom-focused crossover fighter. So now, as you can see, I've finally gotten around to making that Capcom vs. Capcom roster, and it's not too far off from the way I made it around the time of my MVC4 videos. Though it is a twinge different, in case you've seen the one I shared on my Patreon a couple months ago. Here's how I've gone about compiling the roster. In my mind, this game would prompt you to choose 3 fighters for your tag team, and while mixing and matching is where all the fun comes from in a crossover like this, I've also arranged all the combatants in default teams of 3. I initially had a total of 60 characters across 20 default teams, but I've decided to make it 63 so the roster could be a nice even rectangle. Ain't that nice? With no further ado, let's meet those teams. First off, we've got Team Street Fighter. In most Capcom vs. titles, you'll find far more than 3 Street Fighter characters to choose from, but not on my roster. I wanted to prioritize variety across multiple franchises, so Street Fighter will just have to be content with Ryu, Chun-Li, and Akuma. By my estimation, these are the most important Street Fighter characters to include in a game as monumentous as this. Next, we've got Team Mega Man. There's always so many angles to consider when representing the Mega Man series on a Versus roster, because the Mega Man franchise has so many different continuities and series to pick from. Ultimately, I've chosen Rock, aka the OG Mega Man, Zero, aka the fan favorite from the Fan Favorite X spinoff, and Tron Bonne, aka this fan's favorite from both Mega Man Legends and even her own spinoff. Next, there's Team Resident Evil. This single series has so many beloved characters, many more than 3 having been featured in Versus titles before, and that's to say nothing of fan favorites who've since come into existence. Still and all, my choices for this roster are Jill Valentine, Albert Wesker, and Nemesis. Leon, Chris, and Dimitrescu fans, go ahead and write me hate mail. Next up, Team Monster Hunter. This team is easy enough to fill out 3 roster spots for. You pick a generic hunter, a palico, and a monster. Ah, but which monster? It doesn't really matter to me, and the presence of any monster on the roster would probably be viewed as an out-there pick no matter who it is, so I'm going with my personal favorite, Ketchawacha. What can I say, I'm a sucker for anteater adjacent creatures. Next, Team Darkstalkers. This is another series that's hard to boil down to just 3 choices because the entire roster across every game is so full of distinct and beloved personalities, who never get the limelight beyond Versus titles these days. I mean, obviously you need Morrigan, but who else? Well, I've decided to team her up with Felicia, another fan favorite with a great track record for crossovers, and John Talbane, one of the series' most iconic fighters who's never been in a Versus title before. Which is weird, right? He's on the freaking title screen for crying out loud. Up next, Team Devil May Cry. Full disclosure, I'm not a huge DMC fan, but I know there's a lot of love out there for Dante and Virgil, so the question for me becomes who's more fitting as the 3rd team member? Trish or Nero? Let's just go with Nero, I guess. Let's move on. Up next is Team Ace Attorney. Again, I'm sad to report, I'm not a huge fan of this series either. But I know there's a lot of love out there for Phoenix Wright and Miles Edgeworth, so the question becomes who, out of all this series' many beloved characters, seemingly all of which are equally unsuited for fighting, do I pick as the 3rd rep? Let me know who you'd pick in the comments. For our purposes, I'm going with Herlock Sholmes. Next up is Team Ghosts and Goblins. Sorta like how I composed Team Mega Man, each of these 3 spots will represent branches of the franchise that are, in effect, their own series. We've got Arthur for Ghosts and Goblins proper, Firebrand for Gargoyle Quest, and Maximo for Maximo. Remember Maximo? Next up is Team Rival Schools. This series has the same dilemma as Darkstalkers, where there are so many great, compelling candidates that choosing just 3 feels like snubbing a lot of potential greats. But alas, I've picked Batsu, the series protagonist, Natsu, a fan favorite and my personal main, and Akira, who somehow made it onto the roster of Street Fighter VI. Crazy, right? Next up is Team Plasma Sword, or Star Gladiator, I guess. For me personally, this series has a lot of great candidates I had to snub because I'm limited to just 3 picks. But the choices here are far more obvious than others. We've got Hayato, the main male character, June, the main female character, and Bilstein, the main antagonist. Up next is Team Cyberbots. 2 out of 3 choices here are obvious. Jin, the lead character who's been in Versus games before, and Devilot, a fan-favorite goofy villainess complete with bumbling henchmen. And for the 3rd character, I just went with the pilot of my main in Cyberbots, Santana Lawrence. Up next, we've got Team Power Stone. The snub dilemma and ultimate picks for composition here are the same as Team Plasma Sword. We've got the main guy, the main gal, and the main antagonist. Namely, Falcon,
Rouge,
and Kraken. Up next is Team Onimusha. Now, I know very little about this series, but I do know the main guy and gal are Samanosuke and Cade. In fact, I believe they've both been in Versus titles before. And for the last pick, I found an antagonist who, from my understanding, is capable of summoning baddies from the series, which could make for an interesting moveset. His name is Guildenstern, and he looks like this. Yeah. Up next is Team Red Earth. This team wasn't in the 60 character variant of this roster, but they're here for the 63 variant, baby! And they are Leo, Tessa, and Hydron. Cry me a Riverhauser fans, Hydron is objectively cooler and he deserves redemption after how he was treated in Fighting Evolution. Okay, that does it for teams tied directly to specific franchises. Now we delve into some of the more creatively comprised offerings. Team Clover. Our first team to be composed of reps who explicitly do not share a series, but in this case, a home studio. They are Clover Studio's own Beautiful Joe, Amaterasu from Okami, and Jean from Godhand. Up next, we've got Team Versus Original. This team is composed of characters who were created specifically for Capcom crossover titles. They are Ruby Heart and Domingo from MVC2, and Ingrid from Capcom Fighting Evolution. And should this game include a story mode, you just know that they'll be central to its plot. Up next, Team Reimagining. This team consists of characters who are inspired by classic Capcom titles, but are otherwise Versus series originals. They are Spencer, reimagined from Bionic Commando, Sansan III, reimagined from the arcade title Sansan, and a brand new spin on a deep-cut character who's a Capcom original, yet legally tied to Ridley Scott's Alien franchise, Lin Kurosawa from the Alien arcade beat-em-up, who we would simply call LK. And she'd also be visibly possessed by Abyss from MVC2, thus further obscuring whatever features she may or may not have that could lead to a legal dispute with Disney. Up next, Team Fighting. This team is made up of reps who hail from the few Capcom fighting game series that didn't get their own dedicated teams. They are Mike Hager from Final Fight / Saturday Night Slam Masters, Kao from Gotcha Force, who would control a team of Borgs, Pokemon trainer style, and finally, get ready for a real deep cut, Becky from Under the Skin, a party arena fighter somehow even goofier than Power Stone. It's inclusions like this that make snubbing some Street Fighter and Resident Evil characters worth it for me. Coming up near the end now, we've got Team Beat 'em Up. This team is made up of characters from miscellaneous Capcom Beat 'em Up series that didn't get their own dedicated teams. They are Captain Commando, Lancelot from Knights of the Round, and Asura from Asura's Wrath. I got an earful for snubbing this guy from my MVC4 roster, let me tell ya. Glad I was able to find room for him here. Up next is Team Classics. This team is made up of characters from pre-HD era Capcom games who are neither from fighting games nor beat-em-ups. They are the beloved action platformer hero and Versus series staple, Strider Hiryu, Regina from the cult classic PlayStation horror series Dino Crisis, who oddly enough also appeared in Namco vs. Capcom before, and Zack and Wiki from the cult classic Wii point-and-click adventure of the same name, who to date have never been in a Versus title before. And get this, you can make a team with them, Ruby Heart, and Kraken and have an all-pirate loadout. Crazy! Now that's 60 characters. Just one more team to go. And since we just covered miscellaneous classics, I think you might have an idea of who all the last team are composed of. Team Modern. This team is made up of characters from the post-HD era of Capcom games, who are neither from fighting games nor beat-em-ups. They are the Versus Series frequenteur, Frank West from Dead Rising, newcomer Mercedes from the hit RPG series Dragon's Dogma, and finally, one of the Exo Fighter classes from the latest original IP to come from Capcom, the mildly received 2023 first-person shooter, Exo Primal. Which Exo Fighter, you ask? I don't know. Witch Doctor looks pretty cool, I guess. Let's go with that one. Sort of a weird note to end on, but I'd have it no other way. Now look at that roster. How tidily composed, how visually varied. How do you feel about it? Is my rule of 3 per team too stringent? Should some of the more disparate and obscure teams have been replaced in favor of additional teams for more popular series? Should I have made room somewhere on this 63 character roster for at least one Breath of Fire rep? They probably deserve a dedicated team more than Red Earth, come to think of it, but oh well! Leave your feedback in the comments, and stay tuned for more content like this. I've been stewing over a Nintendo vs. Capcom roster for months, maybe over a year at this point. I'm bound to make a video on it eventually. Since this video and the MVC4 videos were fueled by hype for their respective collections, maybe I'll be motivated to finally push out Nintendo vs. Capcom when we get Melee on NSO. You know, when pigs fly.